Hey everyone, Justine here, the Twilight Stamper, and today we're creating this really cool embossing watercolor card featuring Suzy stamps. I'm going to start off by taking a 4 by 5 1/4 piece of watercolor paper, and I'm going to be using this floral stamp here. I have all the links to everything I'm using in the description, as well as on my blog if you're looking for any of these products. We're going to ink those up using Versamark ink, and we're going to randomly stamp it onto our background. I keep twisting and turning my stamp in order to get the look that I am going for here. I did all 4 corners, and I did a little more heavier on the embossing on the left side. Next, I'm going to take some white embossing powder from Ranger. It's an ultrafine embossing powder, so it makes sure it gets every little detail in your embossing. And I'm going to shake it off and heat emboss this. The next thing I did was add some distress inks onto my craft mat. I'm using mowed lawn and peeled paint for this. And I'm going to go with my watercolor brush. Sorry, it was dirty there, and I had to go ahead and go in and wipe it. I'm going to saturate the card. And because I'm working on all the edges, and I cut this card to be exactly the size I need it, fortunately I'm not going to glue it down using the washi tape. So I'm just going in and I'm grabbing the green and I'm just brushing it back and forth to create my first wash. Because this is the first time doing this, you don't need to really go in and put a lot of detail. I was using the bundled sage to do the wash so that it was a really light green color. And then I went in with the mowed lawn as well as the peeled paint and created sort of a shadow look around the flowers and in the actual embossing, which resists, of course, the distress ink and the water that's around it. So I'm just going in with more and more layers of color, and I'm not doing anything that should require talent, you could say. I'm just going in and adding more and more. I recently invested in some watercolor brushes, which have really helped my painting than using really cheap brushes that I got at the dollar store. I'm going in now with a really light wash. I'm using a ton of water on this to make sure that it's not too dark, and I'm going in with a large brush to do that, and I just keep adding more and more water. And I blotted it with a dry baby wipe so that I wouldn't have it too concentrated there in the center. Next, I'm going to take this leaf stamp, and I'm going to stamp that as well onto my card. And I am just randomly placing it along the border, and at first you don't really see it, and I wasn't exactly a fan of doing this once I was started, but then actually I ended up really liking it. So I just continued to randomly stamp this leaf along the sides, just creating a floral look, and it kind of reminded me of almost looking through like a flower bush of some sort, and then the sentiment being in the center, which I thought was a really cool look. And I really liked the detail in that leaf stamp as well. The next thing I did was take this Springtime Hug sentiment from Suzy stamps, and I inked that up in Versamark ink and added that to my dry background. It's very important that your watercolors finish drying before doing this part and white embossing it. So we're going to do a similar white embossing, the same thing we did to the flowers in the beginning of the video. And when that's all finished, we're going to go in and take the bundled sage distress ink, and I decided to make the around the title a little bit darker because the title didn't really stand out very well. So I grabbed my blender tool and I carefully went around in circles around the sentiment to darken the background behind the sentiment so that it would pop out some more and give it a little bit more emphasis. The last step in this card was, or one of the last steps, is I went along with the black soot ink and I just distressed the edges a little bit to give it a little bit of a darker look, you could say, and to make it blend in with the card base that we're going to be using. I then took a dry baby wipe and I wiped along the flowers to make sure that all the watercolor and everything had gotten off of the embossing. Next, I'm taking my Tombow Mono glue and I inked that up really well because it's a watercolor and because it's slightly warped because of all the water we used. We want to make sure that we glue that down and it has a really secure fit. So I'm going to take a card base from Simon Says Stamp, and it's a black card base, obviously, and I'm just going to stick that on there, and that is going to be the end of my card. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and that you'll give me a thumbs up for it and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.